Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
Former federal employees say they lost their jobs as part of the Trump administration's plans to remove diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. But some claim their most recent jobs had nothing to do with DEI. They're now part of a class action lawsuit challenging their removal. For more on this case, Federal News Network's Jory Heckman spoke with an attorney representing the plaintiffs, Mahri Kuntz. But first, you'll hear from one of the plaintiffs themselves, Mahri Stainnak.
I was really excited about a new role that I had at OPM. I was director of the Talent Innovation Group, where my job was to pull best practices and then pilot test and share across federal agencies best practices in retaining top federal talent. So on January 21st, in the evening, I got a phone call from a DC area code and on my personal cell phone, and I picked it up, and it was a member of OPM HR saying, "Hey, I have some bad news. You're being placed on administrative leave effective immediately while OPM, quote, investigates your radical and wasteful DEI activity." And aside from the initial fear and shock of being placed on administrative leave while being, quote, investigated, the confusion set in when the HR person said, "for your radical and wasteful diversity, equity, and inclusion activity," because I said, wait a minute, I'm not in a diversity, equity, and inclusion position right now. Yes, I did formerly work in diversity, equity, and inclusion. I started a new role in a job that has nothing to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I felt incredibly shocked, confused. And then less than 48 hours later, I received the phone call saying that I had been riffed. As a result, I raised the same question again, like, I don't understand. You're riffing me because of my former work in diversity, equity, and inclusion. I don't work in diversity, equity, and inclusion now. And there was not a response to that. So what I can tell you is I absolutely feel targeted on the basis of what the Trump administration believes my beliefs are, because again, I was not working in a diversity, equity, and inclusion role in any way at the time when the new administration came in or at the time when I was placed on leave or rift.
Going back to the complaint here, I noticed there's a number of things that the class is asking for as far as redress, back pay, benefits that have been lost. I noticed one thing that's not on that list is being reinstated back to these jobs. I guess that's a hard thing to ask for if a lot of these jobs no longer exist, understanding the point that the last job you had was not a DEI job, but any additional thoughts there?
Well, first of all, this has been an incredibly stressful period for myself, and I know for so many other people who've been impacted in this way. Losing our passion and mission professionally, and also our livelihoods. Like I happen to be the sole breadwinner in my family with a disabled spouse who has been unable to work. I provide the health insurance for my spouse and our toddler. By losing my job, I have had to pay almost $1,800 a month in health insurance for my family. I have a mortgage and am a first-time homeowner as of a year and a half ago, and my wife and I have had to have really difficult discussions about, will we be able to keep the house? We've had to make some difficult financial decisions that nobody likes to have to make, like, do we still take my toddler to the dentist now that we have to pay out of pocket for dental care? Do we continue swimming lessons, which is a safety issue when you live near the water because of the financial stress that this has caused? And what I want for myself and for all the other dedicated, hardworking federal employees is for us to be able to get back to work, providing the services that we provide for the American people, taking care of our own families by having a livelihood that also enables us to contribute to society in this way by supporting the safety and prosperity of people in this country. For example, by keeping water clean so that your kids can go swimming in our lakes and rivers without getting sick.
A central thing to this lawsuit is just the amorphous nature with which this administration characterizes what is and what is not DEI. Do you get the sense that DEI is just kind of this blanket term that is being used to describe like programs the administration disagrees with or doesn't believe in? It just kind of seems like it is being applied to a whole host of things here.
One of the big issues is that while President Trump issued 2 executive orders, one on January 20th and one on January 21st, addressing DEI, in no place does he define them. He characterizes them as illegal and discriminatory and various other vicious things, I think many of which are quoted in the complaint, but he doesn't define them. Subsequently, both DOJ and the EEOC have sought to make cases for why what they characterize as DEI is illegal and discriminatory. What we know is that people who worked in jobs that were characterized as DEI, one worker, for example, told me recently that for decades they've worked in HR doing recruiting and trying to make sure that jobs were advertised to the widest population possible so that the federal government could get the best applicants. That was her job. It recently got characterized as a DEI position. What she did was HR. What it got characterized as was DEI. She didn't feel like she was doing anything different than she had done for 20 years. So I think that this sort of amorphous nature of DEI, part of the point we're making is that this is a way of politicizing the terms DEI, and we are making a claim that there is a form of political discrimination, which under the Civil Service Reform Act is a prohibited personnel practice, discriminating on the basis of political affiliation, or as we're saying, imputed political affiliation is a prohibited personnel practice. You can't do that. You can't decide that somebody is a different party than the party in the White House and decide to fire them on that basis.
And Mahri, anything you'd like to add?
I'll just share one example of the kind of work that I and my former colleagues did. I managed a team who provided information about federal jobs that were available to people with disabilities, early career or recent graduates, including from minority serving institutions, so that everybody in this country can have the chance to compete for good federal jobs where they can make a meaningful impact on the lives of Americans. So, my former team would go to colleges and universities or hold job fairs, sharing information about how to create USA Jobs profiles, how to update your resume, again, so that everyone has that fair chance to compete for good jobs. And then so that federal agencies get to recruit top talent to help us in achieving our various missions, whether it's ensuring that veterans get access timely to the benefits that they're entitled to as a result of their military service, or keeping our medications safe and available.
That was Mahri Stainnak speaking with Federal News Network's Jory Heckman. You also heard from Mary Kuntz, an attorney representing the plaintiffs. You can find the full story at federalnewsnetwork.com.